Chapter 23, Murphy's Law in Spades. I had been called south from Huntsville to work central Alabama. Might have been slow up north, or maybe they needed help. Either way, I was working the area around Talladega, Alabama. I was looking for a Chevy Astro van at an address off of Highway 77 one rainy afternoon. The given address ended up being a mobile home in a large mobile home community. I mean, it was laid out. There was just, like a mobile home here, and then you went around the corner and there's a mobile home there, and it was on a it was a nice setup, really. All the homes had nice big yards, and the land was rolling, and it seemed like it was a new subdivision, and it was so new that the road was slick mud. It had been graded, but they didn't have no gravel in there yet, and it wasn't paved. Well, I cruised into the area and slowly made my way back to the given address. Had to go all the way back around, back through here, and got back up there. And it was a nice mobile home. Had a nice wooden deck attached to the front. The road dead ended in a circle right there at the debtor's address, and there's a big circle of muddy road right there where folks could turn around. And the debtor's trailer was down the hill about 25 or 30 yards down the hill from the road, and sitting at the top of the hill right there facing me when I came over the hill was a Chevy Astro van. It was facing away from the house, just sitting there waiting for me. There were no other vehicles there. I checked the van's VIN and confirmed that that was my collateral. I walked down to the house and knocked on the door. The debtor didn't come to the door. I figured the way it was set up, they pretty much was expecting somebody to come. So I checked the VIN number. Nobody's home. So I thought, I was going to do my regular speech of, hey, I'm Steve Andrews, and the bank sent me to pick up the van. I thought I'd let you know so you could get your stuff out of it, and I can get the keys. Well, nobody was home. Now, great. Okay, fine. It's time to hook and book. And so I walked back up to my truck. It was the red wheel lift that I'd been using. You see the pictures on the site there. But all I had to do was back up to the van, grab the front wheels, lift it up, and leave. The road was slick and slippery with all the mud, and I turned around. It had rained all day, and it's still drizzling on and off while I was there. So I managed to turn around, and I backed up to the van. Well, as I backed up to the van, I lowered the lift, and I carefully bumped the van's front wheels, and I was ready to secure the van when the van took off. It started rolling back down the hill. As soon as I bumped it, well, it just started rolling back down. It didn't have a transmission in it. I don't even remember if it had a motor in it, but it definitely didn't have a transmission in it. And it was just perched at the top of the hill with nothing to keep it from rolling down the hill, which it proceeded to do straight toward the debtor's residence. There was nothing I could do but watch. Watch and pray. I took off down the hill with all the speed of a herd of turtles. I was moving. I wasn't going that fast because it was slippery and muddy, and the van wasn't going that fast because it was in the mud and wet and going down there. And, but here it goes. I held my breath, and that van just slowed to a crawl and bumped the debtor's wooden deck. Man, that was close. That's too close. Evidently, the muddy hillside had slowed the vehicle down enough so the tragedy was averted. Well, there's nothing for me to do but pull out the winch cable and hope it'd reach down that far so I could pull the van back up the hill, get gone before the debtor got home. But alas, it was not to be. The debtor showed up. About that time, the debtor and his wife drove up, and it only took a moment for them to assess the situation and promptly become unglued. To say the least, they were angry. They were upset. They got out and started yelling, started fussing, started complaining. In spite of the fact that I had shifted into my super nice guy mode when they pulled up, they were still mad. One called the sheriff's department while the other kept me occupied in a verbal jousting match. Well, slowly I began to make headway with being nice, and they began to calm down, and they checked the deck for damage, and there was no damage to the deck. I couldn't believe that. They offered me some tea, and we stood there in the mist and rain making small talk when the sheriff's deputy pulled up. I explained what had happened and showed him my paperwork, and the debtor had no objection to me taking the van. He had been expecting it, so the deputy said, he said his goodbyes, and he got in his car to leave, but he couldn't leave. You see, the road was so muddy, he couldn't get traction to move an inch. I offered to pull him out. I said, well, I'll pull you out. I hooked up to his rear axle. I was just going to pull him out, over the slight rise so that he could leave. Well, I started to pull him, and my truck lost traction on the same slight grade that he was. And so, it's so muddy, I can't move either forward or backward. Now what am I going to do? So the deputy calls a wrecker. They came out with this huge wrecker. I mean, this monster that could tow a semi-truck. He hooked up my wrecker, and while I was hooked up to the patrol car, he pulled us both off of the hill and over the crest so that we could get down without having to go uphill to get out of there. We could go down. I'm still hooked up to the patrol car, so he pulls us over there. So I unhooked the deputy, and he left. And then I paid the big wrecker guy. But before he left, I paid him to go back and pull that van up from that trailer. So he went down there and pulled it up the wet hill. Needless to say, I was glad to get out of that situation in one piece without any damage except to my pride. It was embarrassing to me and my boss's wallet. He had to pay for the big wrecker. But if you like a guy with a job with thrills and excitement, the asset recovery business just might be the job for you, because, there's a lot of times, and this is extra, but, you go to an address, most of the repos, I'm going to say 70% of the repos, 75% of them are you go to the address, you pick up the vehicle, and you leave. That's it. Hook and book, they may be expecting you, or, most of them are dull and boring. But, some of them are really exciting. Some of them you really have to think about. And it was a great job. I enjoyed it.